because the real experience was closer to slow torture than adventure. Passengers didn't climb into a comfortable carriage with leather seats and polite drivers. They crammed themselves into wooden boxes mounted on iron springs that barely worked, bouncing violently over rutted dirt roads for hours, days, and sometimes weeks. Every mile rattled bones, bruised spines, and shook teeth loose as the coach lurched through mud, sand, rocks, and dried riverbeds, with no suspension to soften the blows. Inside, travelers were packed shoulder to shoulder, knees jammed together, unable to stretch or stand, breathing stale air thick with sweat, dust, and sickness. There were no bathrooms on stagecoaches, and stopping was rare because time meant money. When the urge became unbearable, passengers were expected to relieve themselves by leaning out a window or waiting for brief stops that often lasted less than a minute. Women endured this humiliation in silence, while men suffered bladder pain that sometimes lasted days. The smell inside the coach grew unbearable, especially during long stretches without fresh air, and sickness spread easily among passengers who couldn't escape one another. Dust was constant and merciless. Every wheel turn kicked up clouds that poured through cracks, windows, and doors, coating faces, hair, mouths, and lungs. Travelers swallowed dirt with every breath. Their eyes burned raw, and their clothes turned the color of the road within hours. Rain offered no relief, because when storms came, dirt transformed into thick mud that soaked through clothing and froze passengers in place during cold nights. In winter, snow blew in freely, numbing fingers and toes, while summer heat turned the coach into an oven that baked passengers alive. Food was scarce, awful, and often dangerous. Meals consisted of hard bread, salted meat, beans, or whatever could survive without spoiling. Fresh food was a luxury few experienced, and water was often stagnant or contaminated. Many passengers suffered stomach illness mid-journey, vomiting out windows or onto the floor, where it stayed until the next stop. Dehydration, dysentery, and food poisoning were common, but there was nowhere to rest or recover. Sleep was nearly impossible. Coaches ran day and night, stopping only to change horses or drivers. Passengers dozed upright, jolted awake every few seconds as the coach slammed into holes or rocks. Necks crumped, backs screamed, and exhaustion became a constant companion. Some travelers arrived at their destination barely able to walk, their bodies broken from the journey. Stagecoach accidents were terrifyingly common. Wheels snapped, axles cracked, and brakes failed on steep mountain roads. Coaches tipped over, rolled down hills, or collapsed into rivers with passengers trapped inside. Drownings, crushed limbs, and broken necks were accepted risks of travel. Survivors were expected to climb out, shake off injuries, and continue the journey if they could still move. Bandit attacks were rare compared to movies, but fear was constant. Drivers carried weapons, but passengers knew that if an ambush happened, they were mostly defenseless. Robberies were fast and brutal, with guns pointed at faces and lives hanging on a single twitch of a finger. Even without bandits, the threat of Native American attacks, real or rumored, kept nerves frayed and hands shaking. Weather killed just as efficiently as violence. Blizzards trapped coaches in snowdrifts, leaving passengers to freeze unless rescued. Desert crossings exposed travelers to heat stroke and hallucinations. As water ran out, people died quietly in their seats, slipping away unnoticed until the coach stopped and someone realized they were no longer breathing. The drivers themselves were often reckless, hardened men who pushed horses to exhaustion to meet schedules. Crashes caused by speed were common, and sympathy for injured passengers was rare. If you couldn't keep up, you were left behind. Frontier travel had no safety net. Women faced additional dangers, enduring harassment, lack of privacy, and constant fear. Children cried endlessly, adding to the misery. The sick and elderly suffered the worst, many never reaching their destination alive. By the time a stagecoach rolled into town, passengers emerged filthy, bruised, exhausted, and changed. Some were injured for life. Others carried trauma they never spoke about again. The journey didn't inspire romance or excitement. It broke spirits, tested endurance, and proved who was strong enough to survive the frontier. Stagecoach travel wasn't a noble adventure. It was survival under wheels, dust, hunger, fear, and pain, endured only because there was no other way to cross a brutal land that didn't care who lived or died.